Hello, how are you? Hope you are doing well. So, we continue on um, our discussion or elaboration on how to write a good thesis, dissertation, or final year project. So, today we will discuss about chapter 2 literature review. Basically, those are the elements or the structure of the literature review. We'll have first to discuss relevant theories, concept, models that are related or relevant to your topic. And then we will also critically discuss relevant past studies that have investigated, the issue empirically. Then we develop based on the first and the second, means based on theories and previous empirical studies. We develop the study theoretical framework or conceptual framework. Then from the framework we are going to develop our hypothesis. Then we will find the research gap. So basically the general format for literature review, we will have introduction, introduce, then we identify the specific topic and we discuss that particular topic. So those are some general guidelines to writing literature review. First, as I say, you introduce the literature review by discussing the main idea of the research and highlight the topics that will be discussed. For example, if you want to study about the efficiency of education, for example, in Malaysia, before you go to that, you first maybe you give an overview or discussion about education system as a whole in Malaysia or in Asian countries. Then also after that you highlight what are the specific topics that need to be discussed and investigated. So second, identify general issues in the study, but of course do not be too much global or general. Again, here in example, if you may discuss poverty issues in general when you study focus on only female poverty. So before you go in details about female poverty, you must give a general discussion on poverty as a whole, maybe in Asian countries, maybe in the world, after in Asian countries, then in Malaysia, then how previous studies generally tackle this problem or investigated poverty. Then only you go in details and start to focus more on female poverty. And of course, when you identify, not mean that you just report, but you have to critically discuss previous research related to your topic. All theories and empirical studies have been investigated before your study, should be critically discussed with the critics, and also highlight the important issues for those studies have found, and what they have not yet to investigate, or have not yet found. And also you have to show how those topics are very important to your study and need to be investigated. And when also you are discussing about these studies, you have to remember that you cannot discuss everything. So you should avoid discussing everything written in, let's say, in poverty. But basically, you need to focus more only on studies that have high relevancy to your topic. So those are the core, or those are the specific studies that you need to focus more and critically investigate, rather than you go and discuss whatever have been studied on poverty. It will be so vague and so huge, and you may really lose control of your thesis. So also you should Justify the importance of your study by citing and highlighting previous studies in your area and use them as a concrete evidences for your argument. So every argument that you argue need to be justified by either theory or by previous empirical studies. So what these previous empirical studies says about this argument or this idea, are you with or in line with their argument, or you oppose their argument, and why? You have to justify that, and specifically theoretically. Then also, you should also critically and adequately discuss all the variables being investigated in the study. Of course, when you discuss the theories and previous empirical studies, you will identify there are so many factors, so many variables maybe that lead to, for example, to poverty or to female poverty. So what are, now based on that discussion, what are the most important variables that lead to female poverty? So this you can only get it when you do a critical discussion. So you have to identify those variables and explain why those variables should be important and should be incorporated in the model. Also, you should critically discuss all previous studies that have investigated the relationship between these variables empirically and theoretically. So those variables, of course, they have a relationship between dependent variable and independent variable, and sometimes between even independent variables. What previous empirical studies have said about that relationships, and also what theories that explain the complex relationship between those variables need to be also investigated critically and adequately. Think also of a practical, effective, and efficient plan of structuring your literature review, and then strictly follow this plan. For example, you may set up a plan that says that first I have to review all the theories and the concept and the models that are related to poverty. So you start with the theory first. Then after that, you may download and identify articles or that study the let's say female poverty empirically, and maybe you start for those studies that they follow methodology A, and after methodology B, then so you can maybe put that plan. Then after for doing that, you may think of, for example, now how to develop the study theoretical framework based on these theories and previous empirical studies. After developing the theoretical framework, then you may think of how now to develop the hypothesis or the study hypothesis, and those hypotheses, as we explained before, should be objective, should be answerable hypothesis. Then after that, maybe also you plan now how to identify the gaps of the previous studies and the limitation, and how this study is going to fill up these gaps. So, for example, the first step you may need 2 months, then second step you need maybe 1 month. So you have to put that structure or that plan, and you have to strictly follow it and or stick on it. Therefore, your literature review progress will be very smooth and productive. So how to organize literature review? So we have 4 ways. Usually the most famous one is the topical order, means we organize our writing by the main topics, issues, and we emphasize our relationship of issues and the main problem. And means that we emphasize more on similar conclusions or similar finding or similar methodology that been used. Usually we use these when particularly we investigate or discuss the empirical studies or previous empirical studies. I suggest you to use the topical. Then we have chronological order, where we organize literature by the date of research was published. But here I don't really advise you to do it when discussing previous empirical studies, because it will be very difficult if you do them in chronological order. Therefore, it will be very difficult, because it will be, if each year it has various topics have been studied. So this method, chronological order, is more suitable when you discuss the theories. Yes, for example, you will say in 1990 theory A was developed, and this theory has that assumption has this limitation. To overcome this limitation, theory B come out or introduced in 1998. So after fill up this limitation and provide this and this. Then in 2006, another theory, replace theory B and do that. So in chronological order, in theories could be, yes, very good method for my opinion. This is what I use, but of course you may have a different opinion on that. Then also we can organize problem cause solution orders, where we organize the review so that it moves from the problem to the solution. We identify problems first, then give solution. So this mostly to maybe science stream rather than social science. And the last one, methodological, and here we focus only on the method of the researcher, example, qualitative versus qualitative, or time series versus panel data, or cross-section data. So we put the methods based on their methodologies. But this is also cool. You could use it in chapter 3 or even in chapter 2 when you discuss the methodologies, or in chapter 3. So you can give a brief description of how previous studies has used different methodologies, so you can use that as a methodological order. Then also, when you organize a literature review, you have two ways. Either you go from general to specific order, means you examine in general a board-based research first, then you keep narrowing and focus more on the specific studies that relate to the topic. And this is what generally we do. We start in general, as I say, when I want to study female poverty, first I will discuss about poverty as in general as a board-based research, then narrow it to the female poverty. Or maybe you use the other way, where you start from specific to general order, means you try to make discussion on a specific research or specific topics, and you start making the discussion and make it broader and bring a conclusions, and you can draw that conclusion. Basically, that one is more when we discuss our finding, to make a generalization of our finding from specific to general. And the first one, from general to specific, is mostly when we do our chapter 1 and chapter 2. So how we summarize our studies, our previous studies. First, in order to have a very fruitful, effective and efficient review of the literature, you have three key aspect or ways to follow. The first, you have to summarize, then argue, then propose. So first you summarize, means that you read all articles related to your study, summarize them, and then critically discuss them. So you should be able to answer the following question when you are summarizing and discussing these studies. First, what has been done? Actually, now, what is the existing knowledge? What previous studies have been found, have been done, and what has not been done? What is the missing? What the lack of knowledge that we need to further investigate, and what need to be done? So this is the three questions that you need to put in your mind when you summarize those previous studies. So you have to find answer all for these three questions. After that, you need to argue. So you keep focus on argument and justify them all by citing previous research and theories, concept. So every argument that you argue based on previous empirical studies or theories, you need to justify it either by your logic or by citing previous studies and previous theories or concepts. Then at the last one, you have to propose critical question need to be addressed and link them to your literature review. What are the critical questions that we need to really address, and how we link them to our literature review, how we link them to our objective of the study, how those questions really help us to understand the phenomena, help us to answer our questions and our objectives. So this is another important issue we need to do. So how we are going to make links between studies? we are going to use so many verbs. For example, I just give some here. When you come to agreements, to agree with previous, so you can say similarly Sayyidatul Akmal 2020 points to, or likewise Abdul Haq 2020 makes the case that, or Awal 2019 also makes this point. Or you can say again, it is possible to see how Samuel 2020 agrees with Abdul Haq 2018. So this is in agreement. There's other verbs. You could have, for example, in addition, and others. But if we are in disagreement, then there are other verbs we use. For example, however. When you read however, that means you disagree with the previous statement. However, Sayyidatul Akmal 2020 points to, or on the other hand, Abdul Haq 2020 makes the case that, or conversely, our 2019 argues, or nevertheless, that what somewhere 2020 suggests. So this means you are disagreeing with previous statements, and you provide that disagreement. So it is very important when you do your literature review that you put in your mind that some question that you need to answer adequately, in order to have a very effective and significant literature review. So one of the questions you start first when you reviewing the articles or previous empirical studies or theories. What do we already know about the topic being investigated? Based on those studies, what has been already known, to us, and what are the constructs, the variable, the factors that have been, linked to the topic being investigated. Those previous studies and theories, what variables and constructs and factors that identified to be significant to that, to influence that phenomenon, to explain that phenomenon. And also, what are the relationship between those constructs or variables? Is it positive relationship? Is it causal relationship? Is it cause effect? Is it correlation? So what type of that relationship? What are theories being used to explain those construct, factors, and variables? You could have 3 theories, 4, 5, discuss them all. And where are the inconsistencies, shortcoming in existing knowledge? Is it that previous studies, they have limitation, they have found inconsistencies in their finding, or inconclusiveness, they couldn't come to a conclusion about a particular topic or particular phenomenon. And also, what is the missing link that need to be further investigated? So based on that reviewing, so these studies, what they have missed, that's very important to see the missing link or the gaps. What previous research lack? Also, is there any inconclusiveness, as I say, contradictory? Some of them, they found it positive, others find it negative, or research found opposite to theory. What are those limitations? Highlight them, discuss them critically, and propose them for solutions in your study. Why this study should further investigate this limitation, inconsistencies, and contradictories, and what contribution, again, should your study add to the existing knowledge after you propose those inconsistencies, contradictories, limitation, gaps for solution. Your study may fill up these gaps. What contribution your study could provide to maybe policymakers, to theory, to academia, to researchers, to practitioners, to household. Again, the last one, what research design methods or models found to be unsatisfactory and they need to be further advanced. Those previous studies, they may use different methods. So those methods are really satisfactory, are really adequate, are really fit to the type of the analysis that we are trying to investigate. Research design also, is it that really fit to the type of and the nature of the research design, or sorry, the research topic that we are investigating? If not, what do you propose? Do you have any better research design, better methodology, a better model that you propose in order to advance the current status? Then again, one of the important things when you are discussing your literature review is that you need to do citation. Means that you have to cite every single articles that you use, every idea, every finding or sentence that you borrow or you use from literature review should be cited, according to appropriate rephrasing style, for example, APA. So you have to make sure also every cited article also it is listed in the reference list. You must list them. So you cannot, for example, some of the students, what they do, they put citation in the in-text, but when you go to reference list, you cannot find the reference, or vice versa. You can find the references, but they are not in in-text citation. So make sure every citation in the in-text, they are also listed in the reference and vice versa. And as I say, you have to follow an appropriate referencing style based on your university requirements. Some universities, require Chicago, maybe APA, maybe others they have their own. So, for example, in Utah, we are more to APA referencing style, American Psychological Association. You can now have the sixth edition APA guide and follow, the instruction on how to cite and do references. And when writing also, there are so many types of style and of citation. For example, we have information prominent citation, where your citation is focused more in the information provided rather than the author. For example, this example, therefore, exploring the association between health promoting behavior and non-communicable diseases among the elderly is important for further improve the well-being of senior citizens in Malaysia. So here actually we are not focusing on the authors, but this here in the information. Or you have sometimes you more focus on the author. We call it author prominent citation. For example, DeJoy 1996, Glens et al. 1990, and Vincent 1993 indicated that, you see, we start by them. So we emphasize more on them, that health decision-making theory extracted from the value expected theory. Or you can say several authors. So we emphasize on authors, they are here, have suggested that elderly will be able to reduce their healthy diseases, and you cite them there. So you have this, usually we use these two ways most of the time. So depend on what exactly you are aiming. Are you aiming for more information, to focus more in information, then you use the information prominent citation. If your aim is to focus more on the authors, then you use this style. So this is a paragraph as a sample. Studies have shown that chronic stress has a significant effect on the immune system that ultimately manifests on illness. Stress increases the risk for diabetes, especially in overweight individuals. So this is information prominent citation. Then hence, when elderly individuals reduce their stress through involving healthy activities, this, however, may help, so it's information. Therefore, the condition of elderly health being affected by her disease and stress level is negatively related is also information, or informant prominent citation. Then, how we focus now on the introduction and the conclusion when we do a literature review. I mean that not only for all literature, but for every paragraph, it has introduction, the thesis, and the conclusion. So you have to explain literature review structure, and you put after you put the thesis, you establish the logical progression. So what is the structure for literature review? Maybe you will say this chapter is going to or consist of several sections. Section 1 investigate this and the theory. Section 2 discuss the previous empirical studies. Then establish the logical progress, how you are going to do the discussion. And actually this is the core, which is the discussion, the argument itself. And then the conclusion, specifically identify the study that will follow, means your original study as a result of this literature review. How your study is going to follow previous literature review, previous empirical studies and theories. What type of or what are the theories that need to be implemented or applied in this study. And another tip that when you do your literature review is maybe you provide summary table. It's very useful tool to use. And summary table could make your literature review progress more efficient and effective. And this is because summary table allow you to see and manage all argument, ideas, methods of previous studies, empirically or theoretically, and therefore you make sense of a large mass of information. So from the table you can see which studies have similar conclusions, similar methodologies, they use similar variables, they use similar data. So how we do this table? Actually, this table consists of some column, which is the first one is the author, who write this article. Then what theory they use in the study, or theories, or model, or concept. Then what sample population or data it been used, what is the variables also have been used. Then another one, what is the methodology they use, the design, they use time series, cross section, path analysis. And after the data collection approach, how they collected the data, what is the year of data collection, and the key finding, what are the major findings of that research. So you can see this is here. We can see here we have the author, then we have the data, what data they use with the variables, then we have the model or the methodology, how they use panel VRF, panel gradual causality, OLS, FGLS, So then the finding, what is the major finding? So this table, when you look at it, it's very easy for you to see, for example, here they use panel data, here they use unit tests, and they use Johansen co-integration, gradual causality. Here also they use gradual causality. So you have very better idea, and here you can see what is the main finding. Is the finding, some of the authors have similar finding or different finding. So it will really ease the process of discussing and reviewing the literature review. I really advise every student to have that table, while doing literature review. Then you may ask, should I write in active or passive voice? Usually APA style encourages the use of the active voice over the passive voice for clarity. So here in Utah, University of Abdul Rahman, we are emphasizing, or we are using APA, so we are more emphasizing on the active voice rather than passive voice. So writing in the active voice means the subject of the sentence clearly performs the action that the verb expresses. So it will give you a very clear idea what really you want to have. So you should know that you cannot use the passive voice unless if it is necessary, unless if it is a must, then you can use the passive voice. Other than that, please focus more or stuck on the active voice. So what are the type of the verbs, reporting verbs? For example, we have those some of the verbs, but not all. There is so many. You can use argue, for example. This study argues, asserts, assumes, challenge, claim, content, contradict, describe, dispute, emphasize, establish, examine, find, maintain, note, object, observe, persuade, propose, prove, purport, point out, recommend, refute, reject, remark, suggest, support. So you don't say this study say or says, it's not, there are some verbs that we usually use them in scientific writing. So what are the verb tenses? We have the verb tenses. First we have present, a statement about what the thesis. For example, when we use it in chapters or sections, for example, this thesis examines rural household vulnerability to poverty using 3 sets of longitudinal data taken at the 6-month intervals. So you can see the present tense. Or in chapter, this chapter presents the various analysis conducted on the data collected and discusses the result of statistical tests. Or in the sections themselves, when we say this section examines the impact of risk and uncertainties on farmer vulnerability to poverty, both the frequency and severity of risk are investigated. Also, a statement of a generally accepted scientific fact. When there is a generally accepted scientific fact, doesn't need a citation, actually. Also, we use a present tense. For example, household responses depend on their accessibilities of various types of assets, such as land, irrigation, employment, market, or other risk coping mechanisms, including informal financial transaction and so on. Or we can say many households prepare themselves against uncertainties and build up their financial capacities through participating in, for example, rotating saving and credit association. So this is general fact or generally accepted scientific fact. So no need to have a citation for them. But when it is the finding, it is based on facts, but not generally scientific fact, but based on empirical fact proven, or studied. Here we do a citation. So here also we use present verb tense, when you review of current research work or research work of immediate relevance to your study. For example, Galliard and Texier 2010 conclude that religious people are likely to be more equipped and prepared in dealing with devastating conditions. Or also we can use them when we have common explanation and evaluative statement made by you when you are reviewing previous studies. Therefore, for example, now you are going to therefore, as religious farmers regularly attend mosques, they have actually built a strong networking and access to extensive information and knowledge sharing. And you can say the reason for this is that although social capital is found to be insignificant in increasing farmer assets, farmers gain and develop their skills from sharing their experience and knowledge. So you can see here how also you use your comment or explanation as a present tense. Then also we use the past. Usually we use them when we report the content of finding or conclusion of past research. For example, we say Gunther and Hartgen 2009 found that both covariate and idiosyncratic risk have serious effect on urban and rural household vulnerability. Or for example, to be and in all 2012 indicated that positive effect of adaptive capacity is the increase in capacity to cope with manage unfavorable event. So this is past finding is already finding is well established, and we use the past tense. Then also we can use the present perfect. So when we use the present perfect, where we cite or in citation where the focus is on the research area of several authors. When we have several, so we can say several studies have shown that the importance of institution on household well-being, but there are major constraints against their efficiency. And you may list that studies. Or you can say often people and intervention drive them into poverty, but vulnerability also has been seen as attribute that shape individual ability. Or also we use the present perfect when we generalize about the extent of the previous research. For example, neither theoretical nor empirical studies have been investigated on household move in and out of poverty in malnourished communities. Or another one, a number of studies have been conducted with a view to understand, explain, predict, and control vulnerability using economic framework. But most widely discussion of food insecurity as vulnerability was done by Chambers 1989. So this is also a sample where to use, present perfect. So a good literature review should have the following. First of the thing should be focused. Means that the topic should be in a row. You don't talk about too much on general. Yes, we say we start about general just to give an introduction, but we have to enroll until we come to the specific area or specific topic. You should only present ideas and only report on studies that are closely related to topic. You cannot report everything that, for example, published on poverty, because some of the aspect or some of the investigation is far away from your specific objective. So why you should put them? So you have to carefully, choose and identify the most relevant and related to your issue, and there you should highlight that studies and focus more on it and discuss it. You have also to be concise. Ideas should be presented economically. Don't take any more space than you need to present your ideas. And this is sometimes students found it very difficult. They use half page to explain one idea. By right, they can use only one sentence. So you should be really economically. You cannot put everything there. So you should put only the words or the sentence or the ideas that really add to our understanding of that particular area or that particular subject. Also, this review should be logical. So the flow within a main paragraph should be smooth, logical progression from one idea to the next. And this is the major problem and the major difficulty that students and researchers face. The connection between your ideas. Some of the literature read like disjoint, paragraphs and ideas. There is no connection, and it is like just a summaries. There is no discussion, no connection between them. So you make sure that there is that connection, that logic of progression, and also it should be developed. And when you discuss an idea, you cannot keep it half and move to another idea. You should perfectly explain that idea adequately, effectively, and critically. Discuss it and explain it. Once you are sure that that idea is explained 100%, then only you move to the next idea. And also, each review should be integrative. Your paper should stress how the ideas in the studies are related. What is the relationship between them? Focus on the big picture, as we say. What commonality do all the studies share? What they share in common? Methodologies, theories, in the finding. How are some studies different than others? Why with others they are different in the finding or different in applying theories or methodologies? So your paper should stress how all these studies reviewed contribute to your topic. So how all these studies, whatever it is in common, in line or oppose the theory or your argument. So how they contribute to your topic. And the last, it must be current. Your review should focus on work being done on the cutting edge of your topic. Should be up-to-date references. So yeah, in 2020, do not base on most of your literature review or the review of previous empirical studies on papers or studies have been published in 2000, 2001, 2010 or 90s. So make sure that most of the studies, yes, of course, you can use this outdated if necessary and if it is need to, especially in the theory part. But for the previous empirical studies, to make your study robust and has a meaning and has a motivation and has really a justification to be studied, you have to focus on studies that just newly published, like 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, or maybe probably 2017. There, when you find out the gap, it is clearly that gap should not be investigated yet. But if you find a gap that was addressed in 1995, so we are in 2020, is almost 15 years, right? So that is it's a long time. That idea maybe is already investigated. So what are the common errors that usually students and some researchers, new researchers, they do? You should avoid all this. For example, the review isn't logically organized, as I say. The ideas is not connected. There is no bridge, no connection between your ideas. There is no logic also. Also, the review focus on most important facet of the study, or isn't focused on the most important, means that your review usually focus on general topics but not on the specific topic what you want to investigate. And this is what I explained. Review doesn't relate literature review to the study. So you discuss and you review previous literature review and you discuss them, but you do not relate them to your topic. How this study is can contribute to your study or to your topic. How these studies help understanding your objective or your question. And you may use too few references or outdated references, as I say. Only few references makes the review is not sufficient and is not complete, because you may miss very important information is not discussed. And maybe, as I said, the references are outdated. So you are basing on very outdated knowledge, which is far away from what it is already being advanced now. Review isn't written in an author's own word. That's mean plagiarize, copy and paste. You just copy and paste from different sources and connect them. And of course, audience can see that it is just taken from different sources because there is no logic, discussion or connection between these ideas. The review read likes a series of these joint summaries, as we say now. A review doesn't argue a point. You just summarize and report them. Therefore, it will look like these joint summaries. Recent references are omitted. The most up-to-date studies or work, you omit them. Intentionally or unintentionally, that doesn't matter. The most important, you omit them. When you omit these most up-to-date references, means that you are omitting or you are discarding current advanced knowledge. What other also common errors in review, literature review? Some of students, they just hurry through a review to get started. I just want to start without reading, without understanding, and he start to write. But this could mean that you will miss something that will improve your research. You could miss ideas, very important concepts, methods that been used. And this method, concept, ideas should help you to develop your study framework or your study methodology or your study research design. Or you're relying too heavily upon secondary sources. You don't do your review, but what you do, primary sources means that you yourself go to the article, read it, and discuss it. Secondary sources means that someone have done a review for several studies and publish it. So you just go based on that. Instead to go, for example, to study 30 or 40 studies that have been reviewed in that article, you just go to that article and based on it. But the problem is that if you too much rely on secondary sources, you may be biased, or your discussion could be not really adequate. Because why? The one or the person who reviewed previous literature review, maybe he himself biased. He likes one idea or one theory, so he just positive to that side. He never explained the negative side. Then you miss information. Or he misunderstand the concept and report it wrongly. So if you report from him, you are reporting also wrong information. Or he could even miss an important information in the paper because he thinks that is not important, but it is important for your case. So do not rely too much on secondary sources. Concentrating on finding rather than methods, and this is what usually students mostly do. When you do literature review, you do not concentrate only on finding, but also on the method they use, and also on the theories also they use, the concept. And overlooking sources other than academic journals. Yes, it is good to base on academic journals because they are most updated scientific knowledge, but also do not overlook other sources like maybe conferences, maybe books, maybe also magazines and newspapers. Sometimes they give very valuable information, but you have to be very careful when relying on that type of information, because if you take from blogs or internet, you have to make sure the person who is writing is a reliable person. He's really professional, and he's an expert in that particular area. So what he's writing is not something not true or wrong. Searching too broad or too narrow on the topic means that when you read literature review, you always focus only on general aspects, or you go too much on specific topics and you forgot about it. So you make balance between general and specific. Inaccuracy in compiling of biographic information or references. That one is very, very important. Make sure you cite correctly. Make sure you compile your biographic also correctly. Then, what the pitfalls that we need to avoid. So the first thing, try to avoid using unprofessional language. If you don't agree with someone, do not attack him. Do not say, for example, this is wrong, or this is useless, or this is stupid. No. Maybe you say, this could not be the case where, and explain why it is not the case or why it is not correct, if we have that case. Second, do not plagiarize. Do not copy and paste. Make sure you do the citation. Make sure you acknowledge on every contribution for other people that you're taking from. And also, when you have too many direct quotations, means that you take the paragraph as it is and put quotation mark, which is allowed in APA style. But if it's too many without any further discussion from you, then what is your job? So all literature review looks like all direct quotations. That is very things that you need to avoid. You use quotation only if it is unnecessary. For example, a definition constructed in a way that if you want to rephrase it, the meaning will be changed. So you have to keep it as it is. And also make sure that your literature review should not read like a list of facts. Means that your literature review should really be critically discussed, not just summarize and put them as a list of facts. Then also vagueness, or using vagueness due to too much on inappropriate generalization, means that when you discuss, you, as we say, rely too much on general things, then we have a vagueness. The topic that we want to investigate is too much huge, too vague, so we cannot really focus. What is the direction? We don't know it. There's so many directions, you don't know where to go. Even the reader will confuse. You want to do this or that or that. So you have to be more specific. Or try to avoid also when focus on a very limited range of the topic. As I say, you just take a very limited range on specific area only. But there are other aspects that you need to be investigated or need to be reported, but you just dismiss them. So avoid that. Or you provide insufficient and or inaccurate information. Maybe you misunderstand, the paper, and you give inaccurate information. Or maybe you base too much on secondary sources, as we say. So the first person who did the review, he changed maybe 20%. You also change another 20 or 30%. Then the changes become 50%. So inaccurate information already. So much better you go straight forward to the original source and yourself discuss it and review it. Avoid to discuss irrelevant studies or papers. Those papers, for example, they are also on poverty. For example, but they study poverty in aspect of, let's say, a methodological viewpoint. But you want to study poverty in psychological viewpoint. So they are not related, right? Even both of them on poverty. So you just dismiss them, don't discuss them. Or maybe also avoid to omit the omission of contrasting views, a thorough examination of an agreement or an idea. So every argument of previous papers or previous studies or in your study should be thoroughly examined and argued and discussed. And the last one, please do not omit up-to-date work, and we have explained that previously. Then we come to plagiarism. Do not plagiarize. Plagiarizing means academic crime. You are committing a crime. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism includes, based on Calvin, page 89, using another writer's words without a proper citation. You take his own words, another paper, without citing him. Or using another writer ideas without proper citation. Even you change the wording, but you use his idea and you do not give a credit for that idea. Plagiarism. Or citing a source but reproducing the exact work without quotation marks. Means that you do direct quotation, but you put it as a normal. So people will understand that you have rewrite it, but actually it's not your own wording. So if you want to do a direct quotation, you have to put the quotation marks so that we understand that it's not your wording. Or borrowing the structure of another author, phrase, sentence without giving the source. So you borrow the structure of the thesis, the structure of the section, the structure, of an idea, and you do not give credit. Or borrowing all part of another student paper. So you have a student, and you take his paper or some part of his paper and publish to another journal or use it in your paper. That is also considered plagiarism. Using paper writing service or having a friend write your paper. You may hire someone to write for you, easy, right? You have money, you can pay him and ask him to write for you. That also considered plagiarism. So, in summary now, I want to tell you or to discuss this or summarize this all in summary. So when you write literature review, you have to make sure those 5 aspects or points need to be addressed in your literature review. First, you have discussed relevant theories on your topic. For example, how the proposed constructs, factors, or variables affecting your dependent variable are developed. So how those variables are developed. You have to critically discuss how relevant theories explain relationship between those constructs or variables. What are the limitations of these theories, approaches, models, or how previous researchers criticize these approaches, theories, approaches. Compare the proposed approach, framework, models of your study with other relevant theories and concepts. What are the differences? What are similarities? How other theories can explain your model, your framework, or add value to your model or framework. How previous theories explain the variables, relationship between the variables. Then after that, you have to provide a solid theoretical base to justify your hypothesis. Use also previous empirical studies and link them to a solid theoretical background. The review should not read like a series of definitions and disjoint summaries of previous empirical studies, as I will say, but the literature review should be written in a way that critical discussion of relevant theories, concepts, and previous empirical studies should be provided. I say critical discussion. Then, when reviewing literature review, you should consider the following questions, and you should address them all. For example, where are the inconsistencies or other shortcomings in research related to your topic? We have already explained on that. How this study could advance the current knowledge. Is it using a new methodology, advancing theory, using new variables, new measurement, a new data set? Are there any other important evidences lacking from previous empirical studies that they lack inconclusiveness, contradictory, or limitation? So those previous studies, they have this kind of limitation, gaps, inconclusiveness, contradictory, lack of evidence. If yes, how this study will solve this problem or fill up this gap? What contribution can your study be expected to make? And what research design or method seems unsatisfactory? And after that, you have to show how the proposed construct, variable, factors that you use or identify in your study are measured, how previous empirical study measure it, or how theoretical or how theories, concept, models measure those variables. All variables or factors in your research need to be theoretically and empirically discussed and justified. And after critically discussing the issue theoretically and empirically, then you will be able to identify the research gap and limitation of previous research. This could be theoretical gaps or empirical gaps. You should also explain with justification how this study will address these gaps or limitations. So you have to explain in details and justify how your study will fill up this gap and what method this study used to fill up this gap or to address these gaps or this limitation. So here we come to the end of today's discussion on Chapter 2 Literature Review. I hope that you enjoyed the session. So sorry it takes so long, maybe I talk so much. If you have any question or any inquiry, please put your comment down and I will address them, those comments. I will answer as much as I can. Thank you very much for listening and I wish you a good day.